Joining me now, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is a CIA-trained intel operative. John Bolton is former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and a Fox News contributor. Gentlemen, welcome. This struck me when I watched this play out yesterday. I mean, everyone, of course, is entitled to their opinion. But to watch this unfold while the president was in the middle of these, diplomatic discussions overseas was interesting, to say the least. Tony?
Well, Martha, you're completely correct. I mean, these guys are behaving like apparatchiks trying to undermine the government to create the Soviet Union. It's evil. Look, Jim Clapper is the last guy to be talking about someone being fooled. I briefed that man into an operation that only 10 people knew about, and at the end of the briefing, he looked at me like he had no idea what room he was in. This is completely insane. These people are being not only disloyal, they're being destructive. They're actually involved, as far as I can tell, in a campaign to disrupt everything. Clapper, Comey, Brennan all testified there was no hack. What President Trump said to clarify the issue regarding Putin was that, yes, there were 3 agencies and 1 DNI who said that it was hacked. He's got his current guys in there right now. Martha, I've talked to the current folks. They are very much aware of the Russian threat. But to the president's point, we cannot go around trying to poke people in the eye for what happened last year when we are now aware, and we need to hold them accountable, but we have other things we got to do. And remember, President Obama himself admitted that he ignored this threat, and these 2 guys allowed him to do that.
John Bolton, what do you think?
Well, I think it's the end of a long trend for the country that's been very destructive to see the heads of our intelligence agencies in the news so much. I really think the entire intelligence community's got to close the door behind them and go back into the shadows. I think it's wrong in this sense to have supposedly career officials out in public like this. I think as many people in the military have said, just because you become a civilian when you retire from the military, it impairs the civil-military relationship to become a public figure. I think much the same applies to the intelligence agencies, especially when you're dealing with military figures. So I think this incident is regrettable, but I'm afraid it comes at the end of a long series of episodes of people doing this kind of thing. Yeah,
I mean, you look back at the period under which these 2 gentlemen ran their organizations. And Tony, in your opinion, how was their record in terms of handling, in other countries, leadership, having a good understanding of what the dynamics were?
Well, that was the issue. As I mentioned, President Obama himself acknowledged that he ignored this threat. These men, in turn, did not do their job to say, Mr. President, you really need to take this seriously. Look, John Brennan, as far as I'm concerned, should have been at least twice brought up on charges for one thing. He leaked to reporters when he was still working at the White House for President Obama, leaked information to the press that resulted in MI6 losing a critical human net in Yemen. This is no small thing, and as my information is, he's done other things before he left office to leak to the media, to the New York Times in particular. So he has no record to stand on, and as John's point is, I believe that these men have become political pawns in a larger game. They don't want to walk away. They've missed having the authority they did, but during the time they had the authority, Martha, they abused it badly, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Ambassador, what about the notion from James Clapper that the president's being played by Vladimir Putin and President Xi? Do you think there's anything to that?
I don't think so, and I think next perhaps General Clapper will become a shrink. I mean, listen, these opinions are not based on contact with the president. They're based on their reading of the political atmosphere, and I think it's reflective of the sad and very unfortunate politicization of the intelligence community under the Obama administration, and not necessarily gross things like distorting specific facts or adding in facts. It's the ideology that they carried out. Remember, General Clapper once said the Muslim Brotherhood was, a, quote, a largely secular organization. That was the Obama administration ideology, that radical Islam doesn't exist. That's not based on intelligence. That's based on ideology. And they were guilty of it, and they're just continuing it in these public statements.
What about the interaction between Vladimir Putin and the president, Tony, in terms of him saying that, right, he believes that Vladimir Putin believes that they weren't involved?
Well, Putin is going. Look, the Russians set up tripwires, Martha, for both political parties last year. They meddled. Nobody's denying that. The issue is, obviously, we've got to hold the Russians to a certain level of, Russians are going to do what the Russians are going to do. They've done this always. back to the Cold War. So the president is, I think, responding correctly. We've got to deal with them in Syria. We've got to deal with them in North Korea. We've got to convince them that there's some areas that we have to cooperate on. At the same time, understand that they are up to no good. They will do whatever they can to undermine what we're doing. It's just the way they operate. We have to have the relationship with our eyes open, but with some level of idea of what we want to do with that relationship.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good to see you both tonight.
Thank you.